bleeding purple and gold. From the heart of Los Angeles, this is the LakersNation.com podcast with your host, Trevor Lane.
Hey everybody, welcome to today's show. As always, we are powered by CLNS Media and LakersNation.com, your home for everything Lakers. Speaking of which, don't forget guys, go check us out on Apple News. Find Lakers Nation on Apple News. Get the latest Lakers news delivered right to your phone or mobile device. Great way to do it. Go check us out on Apple News. Today's show is brought to you by Fanatics. I am now the proud owner of a LeBron James Lakers jersey thanks to Fanatics. Very, very simple process. Make sure you check them out. As well as DraftKings. Fantasy basketball is one of my passions. I love fantasy basketball. DraftKings is a great way to do it. And if you use the promo code Lakers, you can actually play for free with your first deposit. And away travel. Guys, if you are somebody who travels a lot, you want to check out Away Travel. They actually have luggage that has built-in batteries that is airline compliant. Very, very cool stuff. And we'll talk more about them later, but go check them out. awaytravel.com/LeBron to get a special offer from Lakers Nation. Again, awaytravel.com/LeBron. So a lot going on in the world of the Lakers. Obviously not as many wins as fans would have hoped at this point. As of right now, for this recording, the Lakers are 2-4, 2 wins and 4 losses after coming up just short against the San Antonio Spurs. Yet another heartbreaker against the Spurs. But there's still a lot to dissect here and a lot going on around the NBA. So I'm bringing in Keith Smith of Real GM as well as now Yahoo.com. So Keith, thanks so much for coming on. And I guess first and foremost, man, congrats on the new gig with Yahoo. That's awesome stuff.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's really exciting to be a part of the team that Chris Haynes is building over there with Yahoo, and I'm just excited to play a small part in everything that they're going to do to continue their great coverage of the NBA. With some new faces and new places, and it's exciting to be a part of it.
So, what's your role going to be there? I'm assuming you're going to be doing salary cap stuff, right?
Yeah, you're assuming right. I know my niche, so I try to stick with that.
Hey, be good at it. Know what you're good at and become the best at that, right? That's the way to do it.
That's what I try to do. So, yeah, it'll be a lot of cap and roster type stuff. One of the things that I'm excited to do is get in on some of the news stories of the day, but with a slant towards, like, what does this do for their roster and those kind of things going forward. That's the part of the game I love, sometimes almost as much as the games on the floor. So it's, really exciting to, get into that and be there with Yahoo. And, I'm still with Real GM and Celtics blog as well. So, going to be doing a lot of different things there. And, this is, it's tough because I find myself saying I have a lot of favorite times of the NBA calendar, but this is one of those ones where it's, we're still getting cranked up. We're only a couple weeks into the season and everything's, kind of firing on all cylinders. And I just love it.
Yeah. I mean, like players, you see like this kind of just this lull hit them like January, February, where the season starts hitting the long part. You're not quite where you see the light at the end of the tunnel just yet. And it really feels like just a grind. And I think it's the same way with us, those covering the team. Like by that point, you're tired, but right now we're not there. Right now, the season's just starting. Everything is fresh and shiny and new. Almost everything is wonderful. Even the teams that have been losing still have some hope, except for apparently the Cleveland Cavaliers, right?
Oh man, yeah, what a situation there. They just look terrible. We're what's today, Sunday, and they fired Ty Lue this morning, as the coach, and are moving in a different direction. But Larry Drew was assumed to be the interim, and it's not entirely sure he even wants that title. So it's just things are kind of a mess in Cleveland. And I feel for Ty Lue and Larry Drew and the rest of that staff, because that's a roster that was built around LeBron James, and then when he leaves town, you're left kind of picking up the pieces. And no one made them sign Kevin Love to an extension. That's definitely true. But they're gonna figure things out and all that. So we'll see where it goes. But it's gonna be an ugly year in Cleveland.
I mean, look, if they're building around young guys and they feel like Ty Lue is not the guy to develop, if he's not the guy to develop Colin Sexton, if he's not the guy to develop any of their other young pieces, then that's fine. But then why aren't you making this move back at the draft, before any of this happened? Why wait until you go 0-6? Like, was this a surprise that they went 0-6? Everybody knew that they weren't going to be good. I mean, or did they really have themselves convinced that this is a playoff team because they still have Kevin Love? Was that the thinking, or what's happening there?
Yeah, it's that second one. Is they thought that they could, maybe still be a playoff team, and I think what they did was looked at it and said, well, it's still the Eastern Conference, right, and we've still got guys like Kevin Love and George Hill and Rodney Hood, Kyle Korver, Tristan Thompson, all these playoff tested veterans who should come in ready to go. And the reality is they're just not, they don't defend at all. And when you don't defend at all and you don't have LeBron to then mask all the rest of your weaknesses, it's, really out the window. So for Ty Lue, what obviously he's not going to say this, but my question would be, you want me to play the young guys? Well, then give me some young guys to play, because it's really, Colin Sexton and, Jetty Osman, Larry Nance, and who else is,
that's about it.
Yeah, none of the rest of that roster is guys you're looking at saying that's, they're all building blocks for the future. Maybe David Nwaba, I guess, could kind of be in that mix. But for the most part, it's a really terrible mix there of, veterans and not enough youth. So that's why what my belief is, now Lue's out. They don't have all these young guys to really build around just yet. So my thought process here is I would not be surprised if we start seeing the sell-off of these veterans to get in some guys, really amp up, what is now obviously going to be a tank job, and just get into that with, get Colin Sexton in there, snag whatever kind of young, undervalued talent you might be able to get around the NBA and just move forward. And despite their, kind of look as everybody's kind of laughing today is, some of these guys still have some trade value. George Hill could still help a team, and he's only $1 million guaranteed next year. Kyle Korver obviously could help a team. J.R. Smith, even you could see teams talking themselves into, all right, he could help, and right, minimal guarantee for him next year. So I think that's probably what we're going to see next over the probably month or so ish, because I think for the Cavs it's better for them to act now than wait until the trade deadline. Start moving those pieces now, and then maybe you hang on to guys like Kevin Love and figure that out. If something really blows you away at the trade deadline, you move on him as well.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. They just signed Kevin Love to that big extension. I don't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head. I'm sure you do though. But do they move Kevin Love? I mean, we saw the Clippers were like committing long term to Blake Griffin. He's going to be the face of our franchise moving forward, signing him to that deal, and then they move him a few months later. So it wouldn't be unprecedented. So would Kevin Love then be on the trade block for the Cavs?
Yeah, I think there's a chance he is, and the numbers were 4 years, about $120 million. So about $30 million or so for the next 4 seasons after this one. He's on the books this year for $24 million and change. So what I think that is if you look at it, if you're a team that's really close, and I'm not saying that they're in the mix here, but let's say you're the Toronto Raptors and you're really close and you could package together a couple salaries to go get a Kevin Love. Well, now maybe you say, all right, you know what, we'll do it anyway, because if we're going to re-sign Kawhi Leonard and then keep Kyle Lowry after his current deal and do all these other things, we're never going to have cap space anyway. So we might as well use it on going to get a guy who, I know he's dealing with a foot issue, but part of me says how much of that is real versus
right,
how much of that is just we stink. So it's one of those things where as you look at it, I think he's tradable. I don't think you can go into it if you're a Cavs fan expecting to get, this, what was it, four first round picks for Jimmy Butler or whatever. You're not getting anything like that. But your idea here is get off of it, maybe snag a young player and maybe a pick. And all right, we're off that money, and now we've got a kid in here who can come in and do some damage for us. And all of a sudden that starts to look pretty good.
Yeah, I could definitely see them moving forward in that way. It's going to be interesting to see what the Cavs do. Obviously, I mean, Lakers fans still have a little bit of sentimental reason to follow the Cavs because of Larry Nance Jr. and Jordan Clarkson.
Sure.
Nance certainly was a fan favorite here in Los Angeles. So we'll see what they do from here on out. What else is happening around the league? What has really caught your eye? Maybe something that has surprised you going on here in the first, opening stretch here of the season. We're going to take a quick break to talk a little bit about fantasy basketball. Basketball season is finally back. We're heading into the second week of the season, and you know what that means. It's time to put your basketball knowledge to the test with one-day fantasy basketball at DraftKings, one of my very favorite things. DraftKings is giving away over $400 million in prizes this season. That's more than 10 times what Los Angeles is paying the king himself. No matter what your skill level is, there's a contest waiting for you at DraftKings. Drafting your team is simple. Just select 8 players and stay under the $50,000 salary cap. Earn points when your players score, assist, block, rebound, and more. And the best part is you get to draft a new team every day without any commitment. It's one of the most fun parts of fantasy basketball is drafting your team, and you can do it every day. There's no better way to turn your love of basketball into cash. Download the app or head over to DraftKings.com now and use my code LAKERS to support the show and play free with your first deposit. Remember, there'll be $400 million in total prizes up for grabs throughout the season. That's the code LAKERS to play for free with your first deposit only at DraftKings. Minimum $5 deposit. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
Yeah, you mentioned him when you were talking about Kevin Love, but Blake Griffin and how good he's been
incredible
to start the season. Yeah, he had kind of a stinker against the Celtics, but the Celtics kind of look like the Celtics again. Mm-hmm. They're really getting after it defensively and doing a lot of things there that we're not seeing or didn't see with them early. So, and he was probably due a bad one, but they're 4-1. He's been phenomenal. The way he's played, he's just been really, really good. He's, knocking down 3-pointers. He's really kind of functioning as almost their primary playmaker. So his kind of resurgence has had me, really excited for what he could be, because to be quite honest, for the last few years, the Pistons have been like an unwatchable slog. Like, it's just this team where it's like, I try to keep schedule where I can see every team almost equal parts, and it's like the last few years I see, it's a Pistons game tonight, I really don't want to watch this, but you got to do it. And now it's like, all right, hey, the Pistons, all right, let's check in on them, and Blake looks pretty good, so that's right up there for my number one surprise so far.
Yeah, I got to agree with that. I mean, I at this point I'm kicking myself for passing on Blake Griffin in like all of my fantasy drafts, because he's been really, really good, and I don't think anybody expected to see this out of him. I know a lot of Pistons fans were thinking that the combination of Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin was just not going to work at all. They occupied the same space, and you're going to have all of these problems. I even, I go on to Real GM and I check out their trade and transaction board every now and then. I'll pop in just to see if there's, any interesting ideas floating around on there. And it seemed like whenever Blake Griffin or Andre Drummond was coming up, it was always hey, we got to split these guys apart. But right now, if Blake Griffin can consistently hit threes, that pairing could actually work out.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you're taking the too big approach, one of those bigs needs to be able to step out and knock it down. That's just the way the game is played now. If they can't do that, then you're probably going to be sunk. And there's not a team in the league that plays two bigs where one of them can't step behind the arc. So Griffin doing that, like I said, he's doing a lot of running of the offense for them as well. So I think it's we're in a position with the Pistons where this is not they're not they're not going to win 4 of every 5 games this year. That's just not realistic. Right. But, instead of being around 500 and in a fight for the 8th seed, we're probably looking at a team that is a little more like maybe a 44-win team and comfortably, in the 7th seed or something like that. It's not a huge difference, but it's enough of a difference that it matters.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, that would be surprising for the Pistons, for this team, if they can perform at that level. I'll tell you what's been the biggest surprise for me, and this is a true and complete shocker. It's DeAndre Jordan's free throw shooting. DeAndre Jordan right now, as of this moment, 85% from the line. And yes, it's a small sample size of just 5 games, but still, he's taken, what is it? Looks like 22 free throws in that span. I mean, that's insane. Like, he's actually shooting 85% from the free, like, if he can keep that up, it completely changes who he is not that I think he's going to, but it changes who he is as a player 100%. I can't believe that DeAndre Jordan, who's probably known more for airballing free throws or probably just as much as dunking shots, right? And here he is shooting 85% from the line.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I've looked at is these guys are knocking down free throws. Obviously, teams are hitting 3-pointers like they're something like layups. For a guy like you and I, these guys just step out and knock them down with no problem. And what is really kind of makes it fun too is everybody's pushing the ball. So when you get a guy like DeAndre Jordan's playing in an up-tempo offense, and he's, not only that, but he's, doing a lot. They're running a lot through him at the elbows, which is, he's always been a better passer than he's been given credit for, but they're really allowing him to do a lot of that. And then you mentioned if he's going to hit free throws, that changes him, that changes the Mavericks, really makes them into a, different kind of team. So, it's as you want to look at it, it's a lot of, right now, everyone is, we talked about this with both Terry Stotts and Steve Clifford here in Orlando the other night when the Blazers were in town about the pace and is it sustainable and can this keep up? And they were both a little, we'll see, but both of them said it could, because this is just the way teams want to play now. Teams have bought into, all right, hey, if the Warriors are going to have all this success over the past, 4 or 5 seasons now of just run it up the floor and get up shots and, do these things before defenses can get set, then you may see this happen more and more often. So I think we're, in for seeing this. Probably it'll drop some, teams can't play at this quite high of a pace all year, so we'll see it drop some, but for right now it's one of those things where hey, this is probably more real than it is fake at this point in the year.
Yeah, and I misspoke on DeAndre Jordan. He's actually shot 26 free throws, 26 attempted, and he's made 22, which is incredible. But this is kind of what the Mavs tried to sell him on a few years ago.
Yeah.
When we wound up with the whole Clippers that were kidnapping him or barricading him within his house, and they're tweeting emojis and all those things. And Mark Cuban is apparently driving around trying to find his house in Houston and just craziness. That was probably the most NBA Twitter day of all the NBA Twitter days that we've ever had, right? I mean, that was insanity. But DeAndre Jordan, they were selling him on, hey, you can be so much more. And so far he has been able to do that for the Dallas Mavericks. So, we'll see about that moving forward. You mentioned the pace. Right now, I know most people listening to this podcast are Lakers fans, so everybody understands how much we've seen the Lakers going crazy out there on the floor, trying to push it every single time they can, made basket or not. They're trying to fly up the floor, and right now they are fifth in pace in the NBA. Yeah. I mean, it's nuts. Like, I don't think I've seen a team try to push the ball the way the Lakers are right now, and they're still fifth in pace because so many teams are just playing at warp speed right now.
Yeah, that's a great point and a great way to put it, because you need this frame of reference for what's happening, and that is, absolutely. As I looked at games the other day, I forget, it was one of those nights where he had 11, 12 games, and I was flipping around, and I'm like, man, this team's playing really fast. So I look it up, and I'm like, they're only 10th, and it's like, holy cow, what is happening here? So that's just crazy. I don't know if you saw this one because it was floating around, but we all remember the 7 seconds or less Suns.
Yep.
And being this breakneck team and get it up the floor and get shots up right away. In today's NBA, the highest pace they ever played at, they would be 30th. They would be last in the NBA, which is just, that is kind of unreal, when you think about that. And hey, just one thing on DeAndre Jordan, early in the first quarter, 2 for 2 from the line. So just backing your point even more.
He's
there.
2 for DeAndre Jordan free throw. Maybe this is a real thing. DeAndre Jordan free throw shooting. Hey,
2 for 2 with 7 rebounds in 10 minutes. So
holy moly,
doing his thing.
Hey, he's got a new contract coming next summer. So hey. Right. Big ups to him. He's getting it done. Keith, you mentioned how, the salary cap stuff, all the little salary cap minutia and things like that those are things that interest you almost as much as watching the games themselves do. And before we came on air, you and I were talking a little bit about Luol Deng and his contract, and you had a little bit of new info. You said his buyout is actually a little bit different than what people had thought. And I'm sure Lakers fans would love to hear about that. So can you fill us in on kind of what happened here with his buyout?
Yeah, so, what can happen with these buyouts is a lot of times it takes a little bit for the information to fully cycle through and kind of hit out there. And a lot of times, this is true with buyouts. This is true with contracts in general. A lot of times we see these reports of, player X. A good recent example was Miles Turner's extension. It was initially reported as a 4-year, $80 or $82 million contract extension. And then when you look at it, it's really 4 years, $78 million with $1 million of incentives each year or something along those lines. It was in that ballpark. Right. And that's one of the things that I always try to tell people is, agents want it to look like the most possible money because that looks good for them and for their client. And then the teams, obviously they file it the way it's actually filed with the league. So even for someone like me, you see that, you start plugging numbers in, and then it's usually a few days after it's signed, we're able to get in and see, what really landed out. So with Luol Deng, it's probably not tangibly different. It's certainly not going to make a difference this year, but instead of it being $14.4 million on the Lakers book in dead money, it's 14.3, so about 100,000 different this year. But what's a little interesting is for a team that's going to be really scrapping to create every salary cap dollar they can next summer, rather than his buyout being on the books at $5,026,561, it's on the books for a flat $5 million next season, which is a pretty big difference, there, or it could be a big difference, because I know a lot of times people are like, what difference is $26,000 going to make when these guys all make $10 million a year? It's all about the cap. If you're under, you're under. If you're over, you're over. So keep that in mind. If, coming down the line, they, just squeeze another max free agent in there by, a couple bucks, then it really makes a difference that Luol Deng gave back, about 78 more $1,000 or so in his buyout.
Sure. So, I mean, going into a free agent meeting with, say, Kevin Durant, who's going to have one of the highest max deals ever because he's got 10 years under his belt. So if you go into a meeting like that and you tell Kevin Durant, hey, we've got a max contract here for you, come play with LeBron, come join Hollywood and play in LA and all these things, it sounds a little bit different than going to Kevin Durant and saying, here's a max contract, but just a little bit short of a max contract.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's so true. Like, these guys want to be able to say, I signed for the absolute max. Yep. The money doesn't, I mean, at this point, it's monopoly money. That's $5 to you and me, right. So it doesn't really matter. But to these guys, this kind of money it's more about saying, I got the full max. That's what it is. And guaranteed, you sign for full max minus what did I just say, $26,000? Yeah. Somebody, probably LeBron, is going to be like, well, I got the full max. You only got, this, in good natured way. But, those are the kind of things that players, look at and really, really care about. So, really important to just, little minor things to tuck away there that, right now probably is whatever. That's not a big deal, but it could end up mattering down the line.
Oh yeah, I can just see every time KD missed a shot, somebody would be tweeting, "Not a max player, SMH."
Right?
Yeah, exactly. That would be happening. We're going to pause for just one moment to talk about away travel. Traveling is one of my favorite things to do, but I'm always frustrated because I can never fit everything I want into a suitcase. I need something that's really efficient and yet is very functional as well. And I finally found that in away travel, they use quality materials while offering a much lower price compared to other brands by cutting out the middleman and selling directly to you. So these guys get you a high quality suitcase without having to pay insane prices. They have a variety of colors and 4 different sizes: the carry-on, the bigger carry-on, the medium, or the large for extended stays. And here's what I love. Being in the business that I'm in, it means that I have to be always connected, and that means having things always charged. Well, in both sizes of the carry-on, they're able to charge your cell phone, your tablet, your e-reader, anything else that is powered by a USB cord, and a single charge of the away carry-on will charge your iPhone 5 times. So you can actually use your suitcase to charge your phone, charge all your different devices. Has become invaluable for me, makes it my go-to bag whenever I am traveling. They have a lifetime warranty. If anything breaks, they will fix or replace it for you for life, so you have that extra peace of mind. In fact, I just used this bag when I traveled to go check out the Lakers for opening day, and it came in handy. It was so useful to be able to charge my phone right from there, not having to fight over a wall socket at the airport. It was great being able to charge everything straight from my suitcase. Had people asking me where I got it. Definitely one to check out. And here's the best part. You can actually get $20 off of a suitcase just by going to awaytravel.com/LeBron and using promo code LeBron at checkout. It's great. You guys get to support our show a little bit, and you get money off an amazing suitcase. Again, go to awaytravel.com/LeBron and use that promo code LeBron at checkout. Let's dig into the world of the Lakers a little bit. And the one guy that a lot of people are talking about in Los Angeles right now, and surprisingly, because he actually got cut and then brought back, and that's Johnathan Williams, been doing a nice job at backup center for the Lakers, seems to have beaten Ivica Zubac out for that role for the time being anyway. Pretty versatile player, done a nice job just kind of bodying up some bigger players while still just being aggressive and getting out on the perimeter. He's not a world beater. He's not the kind of guy that's going to push you into the playoffs or anything, just kind of a cool story, but he is on a two-way contract right now. And that means he's got 45 days that he can play with the Lakers. Now, this year they made the adjustment where the travel days don't count to that 45-day time clock. But I've got a lot of fans that are on Twitter asking, well, the Lakers have an open roster spot. Why don't they just give that to Johnathan Williams? So I figured we could kind of talk about that. What does that whole process look like? And is there any reason for the Lakers to go ahead and convert him to a full contract before that 45-day timer is up?
Yeah, so there's a handful of things to unpack here. So let's start with the fact that because he's on a two-way contract, this comes up a lot. He cannot be signed by another team. Another team can't say, hey, we want to give you a full NBA contract and bring you in. This was a big chunk of the reason why I think the Lakers realized when they cut him, this guy's probably going to get snatched up by somebody else. If not right away, it'll probably be pretty quick. And certainly by the time 10-day contracts are allowed in the beginning to middle of January. So I think what the Lakers said is, what are we going to get out of Travis Ware? Probably not too much. He's not as likely to be, picked up by another team. So we got to protect ourselves and keep this kid who we really like. And we've, saw something in the preseason and in training camp. And that's why they signed him to a two-way deal. So now locked in, he's a Laker. No one else can sign him. Okay, I get that question quite a bit of, can someone else steal our two-way player? That cannot happen. Now, you mentioned the 45-day clock, and you hit the most important points there. It's really practices and games are what counts. It can also count against a guy if he has to attend a required team function, like a charity event or something like that. That can count against it. They tend to try to work those so the two-way guys aren't necessarily a part of those things, or they do it on the day of a practice or a game day, so it's all on the same day. But so what you're looking at there is you've got 45 days. Now, what's important is it's not 45 days per player. It's 45 days per two-way slot. So in reality, what you have is you have 45 days for slot one, which is currently occupied by Alex Caruso.
Right.
And then 45 days for slot two, which Johnathan Williams is occupying. Now, the practice days, this is what's really tough because the league does not require the teams to publicly put out there whether a player practiced or not. And in the Lakers case, where the G League team is right there, right? Do they actually share a facility?
I believe they do from time to time. I don't know if it's a full-time thing or not, though. I'd have to look into that to find out.
But regardless, right, they're right there. It's right down the road for all purposes that anyone really cares about. What you end up having happen sometimes is even if you pop into the facility as a media member and hey, Johnathan Williams is here. I guess he practiced with the team today. If the team is done and out of the facility and he's in there shooting around or working with a coach, that can be an individual practice and not count as a practice day with the NBA team. So that it gets really hard. The teams have to report it to the NBA, and it is tracked. It's just not anything that's publicly available. So your best thing to do is just go off the games, really look at the games and how many days were these guys up for games and those kind of things. You get a sense of, all right, well, they're probably there, especially if he goes on a road trip and they have a handful of games in between. Well, he's there, he's practicing with them, likely on those off days in the middle or whatever the case is. So in Williams' case, he's at 4 games right now, played really, really well. So we're counting down that 45-day clock. So let's assume it's somewhere in the range of 40-ish days that he still has left. If he hits those 45 days, that's it. He cannot play with the Lakers again until the South Bay Lakers of the G League when their season ends. When their season ends, he can come back and play with the Lakers as much as he wants to. But if he remains on a two-way contract, he's not eligible for the playoff roster. So there's a lot of things to understand. A lot goes into these two-way contracts, and a lot of teams are still really feeling their way with these. It's important to remember this is only the second year we've had them. So you really need to look at it and figure it out. The league did a great thing by eliminating the travel days. Great thing for the teams. Yeah. Not necessarily the best for the players. Right. Maybe because teams can now stretch those 45 days over a much longer period than they could have otherwise. But But what you're really, kind of looking at here is, all right, so if Williams starts to look really, really good, and right now he does, I'm really excited with his play, is do you convert him? They're sitting on an open roster spot, so that's not a problem, right? They don't have to waive anybody to go. And how the conversion process works is they just convert him into a standard 1-year minimum contract that would be prorated for whenever he signs it. Or the other option is they can do a conversion where they essentially sign him to a longer contract, which is what we saw with a couple of players over the last couple of seasons. So that's something that we could see, happen with him as well if he looks really good. Now, because they're over the cap, that would only be a 2-year, minimum contract, but that could be something we see as well. So those are really the options for Williams. I know I went on there for a little bit, but I think this is important stuff to understand, because it's I have a feeling this one might come into play sooner than a lot of the others do.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it will, and that's why I want to talk about this. So should they convert him to, say, a 2-year deal, is there the possibility of the Lakers making that second year non-guaranteed or partially guaranteed? Is that an option, or because they go to that second year, does it have to be fully guaranteed?
No, yeah, they could make it partially or non-guaranteed. That's fine. Not an issue there. We saw that with I'm blanking right now at the moment. I'll look it up and figure it out. And if I remember when this show goes up, I'll tweet it there. But we saw that with players last year where they got a non-guaranteed second year. So that's probably the most common route that we would see. Or you could have the player and his agent, in this case Williams and his agent, say, we're not going to do that unless it's a guaranteed year, because it might be more beneficial for them to be a restricted free agent after the season, and then look to do a different move. That's kind of the route Tyrone Wallace went with the Clippers, and then obviously signed an offer sheet with the Pelicans, which the Clippers then matched. So that could be the direction we see Williams go there. Sometimes it's the players have a little bit more power than you would think in this situation, because if they don't want to do something, quite frankly, they just don't have to.
Right. And then, I was looking at this situation and I was thinking, okay, what advantage would the Lakers have to do this now versus just letting him run out those 45 days? And this is actually a really great info, because I didn't understand that it was a 45-day per slot situation. So should the Lakers decide, hey, we really want to bring back Travis Ware or somebody else to a two-way contract, go ahead and you add Williams to that slot now. If they're locked in, they know, hey, this guy's been great, we definitely want to keep him around, there's some incentive to go ahead and make him a full NBA player right now, use that last roster spot on him, and then you still have the 40 days or however many days are left on that two-way slot, and then you could go grab someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. If I kind of look at it as, if you're going to do it anyway, it's just smart roster management to say, all right, hey, let's get, the remaining 40 days, 35 days, whatever it ends up being, for the next guy, let's get him in there and have those available to us in case we need them. And, it's a long season. Sometimes you need those guys, if injuries crop up, or, we have another big fight and guys are getting suspended,
Let's hope not, man. Let's hope not.
Right. Yeah. Let's hope for all parties involved. But, it's that's just the way you do it. It's also another thing that kind of goes unnoticed in these things. Sometimes if you convert a guy early, you're showing faith in the player, which is then that builds a relationship going forward with that player and his agent. And that's obviously something the Lakers, that relationship piece have worked really, really well, over the last couple of years,
except for Julius Randle.
Well, yeah, except for Julius Randle. Yeah, so that one seems like it went a little sideways. But, that's a lot of what comes up with, why did they give Kentavious Caldwell-Pope so much money last year and again this year? Well, that's kind of a package deal, because that helped you get LeBron. Right. So that's what you got. You really got to be smart about those things. And it's sometimes you're looking further down the line. I'm going to look it up now while we're talking, because I don't know who Williams' agent is. So I'm not sure, if that is, something that could, pop up or not. But these are the things you don't think about a lot of times with the front offices. They're always kind of thinking further ahead than most of us think they are.
Right. Yeah, and that's something that they have to consider. Of course, we know things definitely went south with Aaron Mintz, Julius Randle's agent. Of course, there's a lot of Lakers fans that are upset that Randle is, playing so well with the New Orleans Pelicans and seems like he would have been a great fit with the Lakers this season. But in general, the Lakers have done a pretty solid job of forging good relationships with agents. And you're right. I mean, you hit it on the head. KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, bringing him in gave them the direct line, the bat phone straight to LeBron's agent, Rich Paul, and certainly had to be a factor here in bringing LeBron to Los Angeles. And I think it's no coincidence that shortly after the LeBron James signing was announced, it was like within a few hours, it was, oh yeah, hey, we signed KCP too. He's back on a 1-year, $12 million deal. So yeah, there's definitely a connection there, and those things do matter in free agent negotiations.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all. The NBA is a relationship game. It's all about building the best relationship with the people you have, with you and the people you may want to work with in the future. And that's what really, matters here is, you want to make sure you're in a good place, with all these guys. And, it's, oddly enough, I'm looking it up. Generally on Real GM, we have all the agent information. We don't have an agent listed for Johnathan Williams.
I was looking at that too. Yeah. I don't see an agent info on there for him, but
something I'll do a little bit of digging and see what I can find out.
Okay, cool. So let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about what takes place here if the Lakers don't wind up sticking with Johnathan Williams. I mean, hey, it's only been a few games. He's, obviously he's done well, but he went undrafted for a reason. He's not going to be the kind of guy that's going to step in and be just that solid piece that you can depend on night in, night out. He's great. I got to talk to him after the game in Phoenix. He's a very, very likable guy, very nice, very smart, very personable, very well-spoken person. He was awesome, and he seems very grateful for the opportunity, and I genuinely hope that things really do work out for him. But if they don't, should things go south, maybe his lack of experience catches up with him. They just decide, hey, we're going to keep him on a 2-way contract for now. Maybe he'll spend some time with the South Bay Lakers. If they don't have that faith in Ivica Zubac, there's been a lot of talk that, hey, the Lakers may need to go out and find somebody. They need to find another backup center, somebody who can play big. Maybe that's not Kyle Kuzma because that experiment wasn't working out so well. And a lot of people were talking about, well, the buyout market. Okay, what's that going to look like? Could there be some center options on the buyout market? So I thought it would be good for you and I to kind of get into what that whole situation entails and what it would look like if the Lakers were to go find somebody on the buyout market. The name I hear a ton is guys like Tyson Chandler potentially being bought out, or people when they heard Emeka Okafor was a free agent going after him. So let's chat about that a little bit, Keith. What would happen in that scenario, and what about the timing for that?
Yeah, so the buyout market really is anytime from the end of the trade deadline, which is in mid-February, all the way until the end of March, because what you're trying to do there is you need to make sure that the guys you have on your roster are eligible for the playoffs. So the trade deadline this year actually falls on February 7th, so it's a little earlier than usual. It is again ahead of the NBA All-Star break.
The Lakers will be in Boston on that day.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, look at that.
In Boston playing the Celtics on that day.
Yeah. So that'll be just a little more of an interesting wrinkle to what's always an interesting day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then your next kind of spot that you're looking forward to is you're trying to figure out. And what I wanted to say is it's March 1st is your next window. So you've got about a 3-week window there where guys who aren't traded at the deadline. So let's just use Tyson Chandler as an example. Let's say there's no deal that works for Chandler or for the Suns, and they're like, you know what, we're gonna hang on to him. And then they say, all right, this doesn't make sense. We couldn't find a trade, but let's just, happy trails, good luck to you in your next spot.
Right.
And he goes off. Those guys have to be waived by March 1st in order to be eligible for the playoffs. Anybody who's waived after March 1st, they're not going to be eligible if they sign with another team to be on that team's playoff roster. So that's kind of the next big date you're looking for. So you're looking for the 7th is the trade deadline, then the 1st to see guys waived. And then at that point, you're really looking all the way down to right till the end of the season for when the playoff rosters have to be locked in and settled. That's really, that's your kind of next window, if you will, that you're, kind of looking at it to say, all right, it's, that's April 12th. You have to have anybody who's on your roster then is going to be, eligible for your playoff roster. So you've got a little while. So what I think is going to happen for the Lakers, I don't think they're going to convert Williams right away. I think they've left this 15th roster spot open for a very real reason of we're going to use it for flexibility, whether that's to take in a 2-for-1 trade or whether that's to keep that spot for a buyout guy. I think that's why they've kept that roster spot open, and I don't think they're going to be in any rush to move off having that open roster spot, unless they really get a sense of, all right, we're never sending Williams back down, right. And then all right, well then that's your hand will be forced, but that's still a month plus away.
Right. And so at this point, it seems like the Lakers are, I mean, people have been saying, oh, the buyout market will be kind to them. They can grab somebody there. No big deal. We're talking about months away here. I mean, this is a Lakers team in a very tough Western Conference that can't really just wait and hope that a buyout player becomes available if they really decide they need a backup big. So this is part of why Johnathan Williams' success so far has been such a big deal, because at the very least, he appears to be the kind of player that can at least hold you over until that point. And before him, they really didn't have that guy.
No, yeah. I mean, he's giving you... LeBron has every year, going all the way back to Chris Anderson, he's always had that big on his teams that's been really bouncy and athletic and gets all over the boards. And that's what Williams is doing. When I looked up his stats, I knew he had been rebounding well, but I was a little surprised to see he's got 8 offensive rebounds compared to 7 defensive rebounds in just 64 minutes. I mean, that's a outrageous offensive rebound rate.
Yeah, that is.
And that's one of those things where you start looking at, all right, hey, that's that could be something real. This kid's he's just kind of getting in the mix, mixing it up inside. And those are the guys that do well, on LeBron teams, because he's always, active. He's, if for as great as a scorer as he is, he's, equally as good, if not better, as a passer. And he's always looking for those guys around the rim. So I think what you're looking for with Williams is just more of the same. But as far as the roster spot goes, it starts to become of, what's going to really matter is, and I'm far from making any judgments because we're not even 2 full weeks into the season. Right. But what really matters is, are the Lakers a team that's worth it for a player to sign with on the buyout market? Because if they're around the 7th or 8th seed and looking like they're just going to be fodder for the Warriors in the first round, those veterans are going to say, let's use again Tyson Chandler. Nah, I'm probably not the difference between pushing them past the Warriors, but if I sign with, say, the Rockets as Clint Capella's backup, I could be the difference. Right. And that's what those guys on the buyout market are always going to be weighing. It's for those guys, it's more than anybody else. It is a right now decision. It's what's going to happen over the course of the next few months for me that either puts me in the best spot possible or puts me in a place where I can do, more than, say the next guy, on the list and maybe win a championship.
Sure. And that's something they have to weigh. I mean, this is from the perspective of the player being bought out, this is their last chance to get out there and show something to teams before they hit free agency in just a few months. So yes, they want to be part of a winner. They want to be part of a team that goes deep into the playoffs. They want to be part of a situation where they can really show their value. So it's team success as well as the opportunity to get in there and play major minutes. So you're right. If a guy like, say, Tyson Chandler or some of the other bigs on the market see that the Lakers aren't quite where they should be at that point, then maybe they don't have the opportunity to go and add someone with that last roster spot. And then maybe they go ahead and convert Johnathan Williams at that point. But for right now, he's just kind of that piece that's buying them time until the buyout market does happen. And then we'll see what they do from there. Who knows? Maybe he plays so well the entire time that they just decide, hey, he's our guy and we're sticking with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing for the Lakers is, and I know fans never want to hear somebody, giving up on anybody who is a draft pick. But let's say Williams, they decide he's our guy. And then it's like, oh, man, we have a chance to land somebody on the buyout market. So they move on from Ivica Zubac or they move on from Isaac Bonga. That's whatever. That's not going to hurt you. And those are the kind of things you can do with, relative ease that aren't going to be a big deal, down the line. This is, kind of, all ties in together. This is why some people thought, why move on from Deng? Hang on to him, because then you have all that money that you could match salary on. Now, I think what this was a case for the Lakers was it was twofold. I think it was, we don't need this guy around here anymore. Not that Deng was ever, negative or a bad influence, but he clearly wanted more. He wanted to play. He was not content to just sit. And you never know when that is going to go in a different direction. And on the flip side, again, goes back to that relationship piece I talked about before. You do right by guys. And when you see, hey, the Lakers did right by that, guaranteed there were players around the NBA who said they didn't have to do that. That's pretty good. On them. And of course, it didn't hurt. He gave back, a good chunk of change as well.
Yes, that certainly helped.
Yeah. Let's be realistic here, right? It's, that also, helped things along quite a bit. But it's one of those things where it's, it's a give and take. And it was, both sides saying, hey, this isn't going to work out. This isn't where we want to be. The Lakers could have forced that and said, hey, we're going to hang on to you and we're going to use you as a trade chip down the line. But obviously they decided, hey, we can get that done in other ways. And I remember way back before the season even started, you and I talked about all the contracts that they signed were structured to be very, very tradable.
Right.
And these are all guys that they could move. So I think what we're going to see with the Lakers is, I know it's a struggle right now and things look a little messy, but that's not going to last. LeBron, himself is too good to allow that to last. So I think what you're going to see is they're going to start to figure some stuff out here over the next month or so. And then I think you're going to really see this team in that period between Christmas and the trade deadline really start to figure out, okay, who's part of the future, who isn't, out of the kids, and out of the veterans, who do we need to help us get as far as we can this year versus who can go to maybe bring in somebody who's going to help us this year and potentially down the line. And those are going to be the things where they're going to start packaging some guys as well as maybe even some future draft picks, because if LeBron's on your team, you're not worried about building through the draft anymore. And that's where I think we're going to see the Lakers probably be among the most active teams, when we hit that point, because it's just the roster is built in a way where anything but that doesn't make much sense.
Right. And you know what? Ironically, if the Lakers had hung on to Luol Deng's contract, then they could actually be, at least in terms of contracts, be in the mix in the Jimmy Butler trade talks, because they would have that big piece that they could have sent out along with maybe one of the young players or some other pieces and things. But without that contract, the only way they can get there is by sending all of the young guys, which they clearly can't do because they can't trade these new contracts until December 15th. So that's kind of just a weird little wrinkle. Not that they would. I mean, we don't know if they would even be in those talks, but it would at least be feasible somewhat from a financial perspective. Speaking of which, the Lakers do actually see Luol Deng. They're playing them tomorrow on Monday, or today by the time most of you are listening to this. But Luol Deng actually just played his first minutes for the Timberwolves in the regular season, played 12 minutes. That's all he's seen so far for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, it was one of those where you looked at it and I was like, all right, cool. We linked up with Tibbs, and I was very public in saying one of the upsets of the year to this point is that he has not played more for the Wolves. I kind of figured he was going to be the one of the first forwards off the bench for them most nights, and even despite all the nonsense and foolishness that has gone on up there in Minnesota, he is still firmly rooted to the bench and only played the other night because they were down 30-40 points for most of that game.
Right. I mean, that's almost as surprising as Tibbs not wanting to go after Joakim Noah.
Could be. We should have had that in our surprises of the year to this point, that Joakim Noah is not a Timberwolf.
Oh yeah, Timber Bulls United. Yeah, I'm shocked that he hasn't gone after him, but yeah, that's just kind of where things are at right now with this kind of bizarro Minnesota lineup and everything that's going on in what's become like Jimmy Butler world over there. So we'll see what winds up happening with that.
I just so desperately wanted to see Noah, Gibson, Butler, Rose, and Deng all on the floor together. It would have just, it would have been one of those things. We would have lived off that for at least a couple hours on Twitter.
Oh, it would have happened.
And if for no other reason, what I really wanted to see was be him, have four of them out there, put the fifth one up to check in, but he pulls out one of the other four, and when that guy checks, just to keep messing with everybody, I think that would have made for some phenomenal theater.
Oh, that would have been up there in NBA Twitter days, that's for sure.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. So, Keith, we've covered a ton of stuff here. We've gone over the whole situation with two-way contracts, with Johnathan Williams, of course, all the different happenings around the NBA and what's happening with the Cleveland Cavaliers now that they've moved on from Ty Lue. I think we've talked about a ton of stuff, and now we've got a pretty good sense of where the Lakers are at moving forward with their roster and kind of what they can do from here. You're in the belief that they're going to probably be an active team around the trade deadline. I agree. I think they've got the right pieces to do that. So who knows? Could be some more noise coming. But yeah, man, I just want to say thanks for coming on here and breaking all this down with me and going over everything. Really appreciate it.
No, happy to do it. And whenever, you and I can continue to further those relationships between the Celtics and Warriors. Geez, that was a Freudian slip.
Yeah, right.
Celtics and Lakers fan bases. I think we're doing the Lord's work with that. But no, it's always fun to come on with you guys. It's it really is. I know it's not off to the start everybody wanted, but they're gonna be fine. They're still outscoring teams through the first 6 games. It's not the end of the world. It hasn't been the easiest schedule. I think I'm going to wager to guess, unless we talk in the next couple of days, by the next time we talk, this team's well above 500 and looking like a short playoff team.
Yeah, I agree. My message has been the same, been consistent throughout that, hey, the sky is not falling. We knew they would get off to a rough start. We've been predicting this. LeBron has been saying this. Magic Johnson was saying this. Like, it's going to take time for them to build chemistry and everything. They've been right there in every single game. They're not getting blown out or anything. They're going to figure out. Right now, it's just the little things. It's the little things that are getting them. And those are the things that will start to come together as they get more familiar with each other. So yeah, let's step back off the ledge, Lakers fans. Everything is going to be okay.
Yeah, you didn't lose to the Orlando Magic at home. So that's where the Celtics fans are like, wait, I thought we were supposed to be good. What happened? And it's not, and now they're everybody who I don't want to say they jumped off the bandwagon, but maybe they had moved to a outer row so that they could get off quickly. I think those folks are starting to tuck themselves right back into the middle of things as they've seemingly figured out how to play basketball again over the last couple of games.
They had one foot on the edge. They were limbering up, getting ready to make that leap, and now they're getting pulled back in. Right on. I understand that.
The joys of the first 2 weeks of the NBA season, right?
Exactly. Let's overreact to every single thing that happens. But I mean, hey, it's basketball. That's the way it goes. And so far, it's been a really fun start to the season. Keith, we're absolutely going to have to do this again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever you need me.
Okay, that sounds great. And guys, again, you can find Keith's work over on Celtics blog, Real GM, and now over at Yahoo NBA. So again, big congrats for landing that spot to Keith. And he's a great follow on Twitter. Make sure you follow him at Keith Smith NBA. Guys, that's going to wrap things up for today. Again, big thanks to LakersNation.com, your home for everything Lakers. And of course, our sponsors, Fanatics, DraftKings, and Away Travel. Guys, we'll be back next Monday with a new show. And we're doing a new thing. Facebook Live post games. I'm hopping on there. I've got a few different people that are joining me after the game. So we do a quick 10-15 minute show on Facebook Live. So go check out the Lakers Nation Facebook page. We're going to break down all the stats and give you all the analysis you need for the game right after it ends. So we'll be picking that up again tonight, which is when most of you are going to be listening to this. So after the Lakers take on the Minnesota Timberwolves and hopefully pick up a win. So make sure you go check that out on Facebook. Again, the Lakers Nation Facebook page. Go find us on there and join in the discussion. We'll chat on there. That's going to wrap things up for today. Again, thanks everybody for listening. Make sure you head over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to this show. Until next time, see ya.